loud, angry, and powerful. We see debaters argue passionately, and it all seems disorganized. But what's actually going on?
Well, a debate is pretty simple. We basically have two sides. The proposition who supports the statement and the opposition who opposes or disagrees. Basically, everyone is arguing why their point is wrong.
Our members will be debating this House supports Alberta's education's decision to lower the diploma exams from 50% to 30%.
Watch as our talented speakers run through what an actual debate looks like. Be aware that everything is timed. Each speaker will only have 5 minutes to state their positions. Our lovely timekeepers Isabella, Simran, and Lisa will bang the desk after each minute to keep our debaters on track.
You'll also notice that during the debate, the opposing team may stand up to ask a question. This is called a POI, where they can question the speaker. Keep your opinions about the top of mind, as we will ask about them at the end of the debate.
The point of this mock debate is to show you what this club is all about as well.
That's true. It's strategic and exciting. It pushes you out of your comfort zone and also strengthens overall performance in both written and oral skills.
All right, and now for the debate. We will begin this debate with Proposition 1. Thank you to everyone.
Welcome, fellow debaters, esteemed judges, and our audience. I am CM of the proposition, and we are here to discuss the motion that this House supports Alberta's education decision to decrease the weight of the diploma exams from 50 to 30%. Now, if I gave you a coin and I said, make an important life decision whether or not you get heads or tails, would you agree? Of course not. Now, why would you disagree with me? Well, because your life and the decisions associated with it are too important to base off of a 50-50 chance. Regardless of how much you study or how many diploma exams you've taken, to equate 4 months or a whole year of hard work with one test is essentially a gamble. Now, let us define the terms of this debate. This House, meaning Ernest Manning High School, supports, meaning in favor of a decision. Decrease, meaning to lower, and diploma exams, meaning the provincial standardized exams that Albertan grade 12 students must take. Let us go on to my constructive arguments. I will explain the unfair disadvantage Alberta students were given in terms of university acceptances because of diplomas and how the decreased weighting of the diplomas will benefit our students. My partner Haley will explain how a diploma doesn't truly represent how much a student has learned and that it causes undue anxiety. Now, on to my first constructive argument. University applications are a stressful time. Students have to present to their prospective universities why they are a suitable fit, which is shown primarily through grades. Therefore, Alberta students are at a disadvantage if they consider universities outside of Alberta as compared to their peers in other provinces who do not have diplomas. Even university officials recognize this because University of Saskatchewan recently cut Alberta diploma score from admission consideration. Would you not agree?
CHAM, most universities base their admissions on grade 11 grades which do not have a diploma.
That's actually quite inaccurate because there are different universities that base off their grades not just on early admission, which is through September to December, but it's also through January to June, which is when diplomas are shown. And also, there's such things as students doing their grade 12 classes in grade 11. Now, depending on whether or not the cost of the diploma mark was higher, consider what Dan Seneca, the University of Saskatchewan's manager of undergraduate recruitment, said. He said, admitting some students based off of one test score and other students based off of an entire year of marks does not make sense to us. We believe the future of Alberta students should not rest on a single test result. If even university officials recognize this, then why would Alberta Education believe they could oppose? Also, due to the timing of the diplomas, which occur during January and June, this creates a complicated procedure for universities outside of Alberta when application season comes around. Considering that many universities make the admissions either during the middle of the semesters, not necessarily at the end of the semesters, then having to wait for the diploma marks to process makes Alberta students' admission process very tedious. In fact, according to Louis Legris, the director of undergraduate admissions for Simon Fraser University, he said, we're not waiting until they finish the exam. We use whatever they give us at the time of admission. Therefore, this creates a confusing process.
If they don't wait for the diploma exam, then why is reducing the diploma exam going to help their admissions in any way?
Because there are also grade 11 students who do their diploma exams in grade 11. So basically, when they apply for grade 12, they're stuck with this diploma that probably lowered their mark and it sabotages their admission consideration. Let me finish my point before we get a POI. Now, this creates a confusing process where Alberta universities are waiting for the diploma marks to proceed. Yet, universities outside of Alberta are not willing to wait. These students may have to submit their grade 11 marks to these universities, and this may not be an accurate measurement of their final understanding because some students may not have done well in grade 11, but will excel in grade 12, which my partner will elaborate on later. So therefore, what is the point of restricting these diplomas? What is the point of these diplomas if they restrict the student from using their grade 12 marks? It's simply a nonsensical process. Now, whether or not it is double standards or simply a confusing application process, these diplomas create nothing but distress for Alberta students. It is for these reasons that we support Alberta Education's decision to decrease the weight of diplomas, and thank you for listening to my proposition.
Good afternoon, guests, judges, and worthy opponents. We are here today to debate the motion this House supports Alberta Education's decision to decrease the diploma examination from 50% to 30%. We on side opposition believe this motion must fall, and we will be showing you why that is today. Firstly, let me explain the burdens that both sides must fulfill today. As side opposition, our job today is to simply give you one reason why this motion must not pass. The burden of proof lies on side proposition. They must prove to you without any doubt why this House would indeed support the decreased diploma examination weighting. Now, before we get started with our constructive case, we'd like to first agree with the proposition's definitions of the terms, and we will gladly argue the debate within these defined terms. So what will side opposition be doing for you today? We'll be doing three things. First, we'll be going through the proposition's constructive case and thoroughly deconstructing it. Secondly, we'll be going to our first pillar of our constructive case, and then Sophia will be going to our second and third. And lastly, Liam will be thoroughly rebutting their proposition case, as well as summarizing and concluding the debate. Now, before I get into my constructive case, I must admit the proposition's case is looking a lot like Swiss cheese, full of holes. So their first point was the unfair advantage that Alberta students get when it comes to university admissions. Now, we on side opposition are really confused how this really helps them, because that's in fact just universities trying to level the playing field. By giving Alberta students maybe a 4% bump, or not looking at their diploma grades, that simply helps them out and puts all of Canada on the same leveling field. So we don't see how this is unfair. Secondly, we're looking at the tedious application process that they keep bringing up, and we're not sure if that's the right argument for this debate. This debate isn't arguing if the admissions process is flawed, but instead if the diploma examination weighting should be reduced, and we don't believe it should. This application process that's confusing and doesn't really make sense, it's a problem with university admissions and not a problem with diploma examination weighting. So now that I've thoroughly deconstructed their case, we're going to get on to our constructive case. So what we're going to be talking to you today about is firstly, university preparedness and accommodations that we received. Secondly, the standardization of Alberta education across the province. And thirdly, the risk-free factor, essentially, of diplomas. So I'll be going to our first point, and Sophia will be doing our second and our third. So firstly, the diploma can help students going to post-secondary in many ways. Firstly, we receive accommodations like side proposition has brought up, such as a 4% bump for students going to University of British Columbia or University of Western Ontario, and a few others, as well as the fact that we are also receiving good work. We learn how to have a good work ethic, we know how to maintain stress, and we learn a lot of really good things. Do you not agree, Haley? Do you not agree that there are external factors that can affect the student's exam process?
Oh, of course there are, and that's what my partner Sophia will be going into. Diplomas aren't a one-shot. You don't just take it and that's it. You can redo your diploma examination just itself. You don't have to redo the entire course. There are measures in place in order to help students if they do have a bad day. It's possible to redo exams, and that's not the end of it. So let's look at this. University courses often have 50% and even 100% final exams. So if students are coming from high school where you have a 30% final and then straight into a 50% or even 100% final, there's going to be a large gap in learning and you're going to struggle a lot. In fact, a University of Saskatchewan study of 12,000 university students over a 3-year period showed that Albertan students' grades dropped only 6%, while students from British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and even Ontario see their grades drop about 20%. So Albertan students have learned how to deal with stress. They know how to work hard, and they've built a good work ethic. And these are things that they can put into their jobs, they can put into life after high school, even if they aren't going to university. If university isn't the end goal, then they can still use these things that they've learned in high school. Would you not agree, Haley?
Would you not agree that there are other aspects that will influence a student's final grade, aside from the test day, but leading up to the test as well?
Okay, so if a student is stressed out,
they have a hard time doing it, once again, they can just redo the exam. It's not all about the exam. You have a 50% class grade. That 50% counts for a lot. And then we're also going to talk about the fact that the 50% diploma exam has set up a standardization all across Alberta, as well as the fact that it's a risk-free diploma. You can redo it, and you have many different things that you can do in order to fix the bad diploma, if in case that happens. So what has side proposition brought to you today? We have shown you that the side propositions case is quite flawed, and we showed you why that is. We've also showed you our first contention, and Sophia will be going into our second and third. This is why this motion must fall.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Haley, and I will be arguing for the proposition which supports Alberta Education's decision to lower the diploma's weight from 50 to 30%. Overall, I will be discussing how the diplomas don't truly reflect student learning, as well as the stress and anxiety that students experience during and after the exam season. To begin, I would like to clash with the preposterous statements that side opposition made. To begin, they state that diplomas are completely risk-free and you can take them. However, this is a discriminatory thing towards lower class families, as the diplomas do cost time to redo, and they do take up quite a bit of time.
Do not agree that with working a part-time job, you can work 2 hours, gain $25, which is the fee of a diploma.
Fair point, but a lot of students do not have the job opportunities that are set out for many of the Canadian students. Continuing on with what side opposition said, in their own words, they said 50% counts for a lot, which is admitting that the grade point of the diploma that is 50% is counting for a lot of your final grade. You have a lot riding on that one day. This one test is determining your university future and the future of a lot of your students. To begin my points, I would like to say, how can anybody, especially the government, equate an entire year's worth, or 4 months, an entire term's worth of learning to one day? When writing an exam, external factors that the student experiences are not fully taken into consideration. For example, what if the student has a bad day or a family crisis? Sure, like side opposition said, they can retake the exam, but like I said, that takes a lot of time and it actually costs money. Continuing on, the stress and anxiety, the retaking of the exam causes stress in students and may impact their final score. Yes?
Wouldn't you agree that students that can't handle the stress of one exam will have a hard time going on into the job field, going into the work field, and doing a good job of their job if they can't handle stress?
It's not necessarily the fact that students can't handle stress that is being taken into consideration, but the fact that the 50% exam weight is causing too much stress for the students. Nowhere in a workplace environment will you be riding on 50% of your job on that one day. They may appeal and retake the exam. However, the retaking of the exam actually shows up on university transcripts when a student is applying. Furthermore, the final exam may give students a chance to increase their mark, but if they're not doing well in the course, they will not do well on the final exam. Thus, lowering the weight from 50 to 30% is allowing the student to work harder for their grades as opposed to lancing it on one day. Would you not agree?
If they're not doing well in the course, why would you expect them to do well on the final exam? And then why would you lower it in order to make their mark go even higher? That's not how it works.
Well, you see, if a student is struggling in the course, then the effect isn't going to have isn't going to have a very large effect on their final. However, we're talking about the majority of the students here who work hard in their classes and are going to need the lowered percentage in order to succeed. Not only do the final exams not take into consideration external factors, they also do not truly represent student learning, which is the main point that Proposition is discussing today. Many studies prove that final exams do not reflect how good a student is at the course or what their capabilities are. Rather, it reflects how good a said student is at memorizing and taking tests. A truly brilliant student may have a hard time taking tests, and thus, with the increased test score of 50%, it'll make it harder for them to succeed in the course. My final point, I would like to point out how large an impact stress has on the students during the exam season. With the 50% weight score, it is making students so stressed out to the point where they are breaking. A 2013 Alberta study showed that suicide rates and suicidal actions increased 11% during and after the exam season. The pressure to succeed on that one test for that one day is pushing students to do the unimaginable. Additionally, the pressure to succeed on a test that determines your future is causing Alberta school teachers to have have in their instructions what to do if a student vomits or pukes during the test. How sad is that? How much pressure is being put on our students by the 50% weight? Clearly enough for the students to feel both the physical and emotional effects. In conclusion, Alberta education will not only be a better reflection of student learning once the weight is lowered from 50 to 30%, as well as the fact that it will aid in decreasing student anxiety and stress. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, guests, and my opponents. We're here to discuss the topic of this House supports Alberta's education decision to decrease the diploma examination from 50 to 30%. We're here to show you why this motion must fall. So my name is Sophia, and I'm the second speaker of side opposition, and we're going to break this debate down into 3 different parts. First, I'm going to point out the flaws in my opponent's case. Then I'm going to be going into my constructive pillars. And then lastly, Liam will be thoroughly rebutting as well as closing this debate up for you guys. So we're going to talk a little bit about side proposition's case. They mentioned at the very beginning the fact that this exam is a coin flip, this is gambling. Ladies and gentlemen, when you walk into a diploma, you know exactly what you are walking into. Alberta breaks it down for you, they tell you what you're going to do, what you're going to write, and it's not a surprise. Then they talk about anxiety and how in a diploma that's worth 50%, the teachers are told how to react if a student vomits. I would just like to point out that you have the same instructions on the grade 10 final, which is worth 30%. If a student has anxiety for exams, they are going to have anxiety on a 30% test as well as a 50% test. That's not the problem with it. Lastly, also, they talked about how this exam defines your entry into university. If you are sending in your marks for a university, you can say, my course mark is this, it is in progress, and I will give you my diploma mark when it comes. The final date that you can hand in your transcripts is the end of August. Therefore, you have a chance to redo this. You have 4 chances to redo a diploma, and you can redo them as many times as you want. You can do them in January, you can do them in April, you can do them in June, as well as in August. You have 4 chances at this exam, and they will take your highest mark. But that's part of my case. Would you not agree?
Would you not agree that when a student retakes the exam, it shows up on their transcript and universities may view that negatively?
That's true. They do penalize you by 2%. You get 2% taken away from you. If you are getting a good mark, 2% will not define whether you go into the course or not. Not if you have overall other grades or where they need to be. Not this time. Also, they talk about how it doesn't reflect your mark. Well, that's true because it's not the full mark. It's only 50%. We are not talking about an exam that is 100% of your mark. That comes in university. Also, speaking of university, there are tests in university that are worth 100% of your grade. So you do an entire semester to write a test that's 100% of your grade, and Alberta only prepares you for that. Also, they talked about how you're never going to have a job that is going to be as stressful as an exam like that, where it's not 50% of your work. I'd just like to point out that there are jobs that people's lives depend on you. So yeah, it's just as stressful. So going into my constructive case, first we're going to talk about the standardization of Alberta's education, and second of all, how it's risk-free. So number 1, this keeps education at a certain standard. We all have to study a certain amount to be able to write a diploma, whether it be 30-1 or 30-2. Would you not agree?
Would you not agree that this standard is fairly irrelevant if the rest of Canada then doesn't follow it, making applications to universities outside of Alberta still different than those inside?
I absolutely would not agree, because we get a higher education, we have a higher mark, not necessarily a high education, but we work ourselves, we push ourselves harder, and Canada recognizes that, gives us an acknowledgement for it. We even get some 4% bonuses on universities such as British Columbia. No. Also, teachers have to act with integrity and have to be honest. Because when it's worth so much, when it's worth 50%, you have to be able to teach your students exactly what they need to know. So it kind of helps you out. Also, Alberta breaks your exam down exactly what it needs to be. For example, a chem diploma, it tells you what you need to study. You don't need to memorize an entire book. You need to memorize what you need to know, the little segments you need to know. You need to know how to do it well. We know exactly what we're walking into. Then there's the risk-free of it. You have 4 chances to rewrite a diploma, and they're going to take your mark. It is a fee of $26, but if you get a part-time job, you have to work 1 shift, which is usually 4 hours, and then you're set to write a diploma. Also, they don't restrict on how many times you want to take it. one test that you have the opportunity to improve. Universities will accept your course mark until you can rewrite your diploma. So, what has side opposition brought to you today? We have proven our three pillars. We have completely disconstructed their case. Also, Liam will further close the debate up and show you why this motion must fall. Thank you.
Distinguished judges, opposition, and honored guests. My name is Rory, and I'm here to close the argument for side proposition on the motion of why Alberta education should lower the mark of the diploma examination from 50% to 30%. First of all, I would like to rebut some of the points that side opposition has made throughout this debate. Side opposition often has brought up the point that universities give advantages to Alberta students because our diploma is marked higher, because we have the tougher test to write, when this is not true for the majority of universities. Only a minority of universities, even within Canada alone, give an advantage to these students. And Alberta diplomas are not recognized as even being tougher than any others in the international scene, where a majority of high-achieving students are wishing to go. Now, a major point that side opposition continues retorting is that these high-stress exams are something that's experienced in the real world, where this is not true. After university, very, very few people in their jobs have to write examinations as part of their job. Stress comes in many forms, and exam stress is just one of these forms that many students have trouble with, as seen in the statistics brought up by side proposition in this argument at the increasing suicide rates and student illness during the exam season. Many university courses do not require massive weighted exams in the range of 50 or 100% for the final marks. Many polytechnic institutions and other such university courses do not require the entire of your mark to rest on one day. Many education establishments have an assessment of the entire year of work, which is a much more accurate and detailed look at a student's ability. If a student can keep up a work ethic over an entire year or semester, it shows a much greater dedication to the learning than it does in a single day of work done really well. All students should be treated in the same playing field, and that's why we feel a weaker weighted diploma, which takes away this so-called Alberta student advantage, gives all students in Canada an equal playing field for their diplomas. If we're all playing by the same rules and the same marking, it means we can all get a much fairer comparison of which students are stronger than the others. For these reasons, side proposition rests its case.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honored opponents. I would like to start off by clashing with some of the points made by the proposition. Firstly, point made equating the diploma exam to a flip of a coin. As has already been mentioned by us, the opposition, this is a gross inaccuracy. This suggests that diplomas are up to luck, and this is simply not true. They are a method of creating a standard that can be met with hard work. They have mentioned that diplomas disadvantage Albertan students going into university. However, we have brought up the point that you can retake these tests and regain this opportunity through a minimal amount of work over and over again 4 times you have the opportunity. Certain universities, depending on your choice, bump Albertan students' grades in order to recognize the difficulty of these diplomas. The proposition went on to say that the marking of diplomas is a tedious and complicated task. They failed to mention here how changing the diplomas to a 30% weighting would improve the situation. Maintaining the weighting of 50% or changing it to 30% would not change the way that the exam is processed. This is not an issue to do with weighting, but the very existence of standardized diploma testing. Furthermore, they mentioned these diplomas are researched and reviewed repeatedly by experts and tested in the classroom to ensure fairness. Questions to reflect critical thinking skills and a working ability in the topic are constantly being developed. They are marked in an unbiased manner, reducing grade inflation and grade devaluation by different teachers for similar work, making them a reliable and accurate reflection of the student's ability in the course. It was also mentioned that these tests cause anxiety. I acknowledge that it is possible for a student to feel anxiety during the diploma. However, as has already been mentioned, these diplomas prepare students for the future. In post-secondary, exams can make up a majority or all of a student's grade. And these exams are far from optional. Large amounts of time, money, and hopes of future employment invested. Similar stress can be found in the workforce, where a failure to complete a project properly can result in the loss of your job. A doctor who deals with people's lives on a regular basis, if he fails in his duties that day, the end of someone's life can be on the line. This is certainly stressful, and to deal with examinations in this way prepares students for this stress. Ladies and gentlemen, we on side opposition have shown you many reasons why this House should not support Alberta's education's decision to lower the diploma weighting to 30%. The proposition has stated that the diplomas at the current weighting can cause anxiety in students. However, we pointed out that diplomas prepare students for university, where heavily weighted exams are the norm. We have also brought up the idea that the current weighting standardizes education, ensuring that the curriculum is taught to a high standard and giving students a chance to show their knowledge without the possible bias of teachers. Finally, the proposition stated that one exam should not hinder a student's choices for the future. Yet, we, the opposition, have argued that the diploma exam does not eliminate all choices, as it is possible to retake the test and receive other benefits based on one's university choice. It is our goal, as opposition, to show that this House should not adopt Alberta's education's decision to lower the diploma weighting to 30%, and through these reasons, we have done so. Thank you.
So that's the end of the debate. Thank you guys all for coming. It was certainly fun. But we just wanted to get your guys' opinion. Do you think we should lower it, or do you think we should keep it at 50?
Pretty controversial.
Yeah.
Like the minute I heard they lowered it, I was instantly like, great, that's amazing. But then it prepares you, right?
Yeah, but I was like, I'm kind of glad they lowered it. I don't know. I thought it was
But if
easier.
they keep it, then you're prepared.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Do you think yes